Today we are going to be looking at factoring by the greatest common factor, the GCF. So the GCF, greatest common factor, is the largest number that divides exactly into two or more numbers. So let's just look at the GCF of numbers right now before we get into factoring. So we need to find the GCF of 12 and 16. If we list the factors, so all the numbers that multiply into 12, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. Now if we do the same thing for 16, all the numbers that multiply into 16, we have 1, 2, 4, 8, and 16. Now we're going to look for the largest number that they have in common, the largest factor. So they both have 1, 2, and 4 in common. We want the largest. So our GCF is 4. Now let's look if we have variables. So we need to find the GCF of x squared and x to the third. So if we look at x to the third, let's think of that as just breaking it up. We have 3 x's in common, or 3 x's in this. And then x squared, we have 2 x's. So we want the amount that they have in common that you can divide out. So they both have 2. That's the max you can take out. So our GCF is x squared. There's 2 in each. If you also look, it's going to be the smallest exponent. It's going to be your GCF when you're dealing with variables and exponents. Okay, now let's combine these two. So we need to find the GCF of 8x squared y to the fourth and 24xy to the sixth. So start off with your numbers 8 and 12. What is the largest number that divides into 8 and 24 evenly? See, the largest number that goes into 8 is 8, and 8 also goes into 24. So our GCF is 8. Now, let's look at x. We have x squared and x. The most x's we can take out or have in common is just 1x. It's going to be the smallest exponent, just x. Now for y, we have y to the fourth and y to the sixth. We have 4 y's and 6 y's. So the most we can have for our GCF is our y to the fourth. So our GCF of 8x squared y to the fourth and 24x y to the sixth is 8x y to the fourth. Let's look at the last one here. We have 9x to the third y and 12y. Let's start off with our numbers 9 and 12. What's the greatest factor that goes into those two numbers? 3 goes into 9 and it goes into 12. And that's going to be the largest number that goes into both. And then let's look at x. We have x to the third and there's no x's. So our GCF cannot have any x's. And then we have a y and a y. So we can have our GCF being 3y. Okay, now let's take it a step further. Now we're going to factor by the GCF. So when you factor by the GCF, you are factoring the polynomial and you are looking to rewrite it as the GCF on the outside, and then whatever is left over after dividing out the GCF goes inside your parentheses. So we have an expression, 10x minus 15. What is the GCF, or what can you divide out of 10x and negative 15? The largest number to go into 10 and 15 is 5. Can we take any variables out? Do we have anything in common? No. So then we start our parentheses. Now we divide it. 10 divided by 5 is 2, and we still have our x. Then 5 divided by negative 15 is negative 3. So we just factored by the GCF. So the outside number is your greatest common factor. Your inside is what you factored out and what you're left over with. Okay, let's look at the next one. So now we have 3 terms. So let's start off with our coefficients, 12, 6, and 10. The largest number to divide into 12, 6, and 10 is 2. Now let's look at our x's. We have x to the third, x squared, and x. We want the smallest one. So we just want x to be out of our parenthesis with our GCF. So our greatest common factor is 2x. Then we are going to divide it. 12 divided by 2 is 6. X to the third divided by x, we have 3 and we take 1 out, so we get x squared. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. We have x squared divided by x. We're left with just x. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. X divided by x, we don't have any left. And then if you notice, inside our parentheses, we do not have anything that we can take out of it. There's no other common factors. So we are done. So let's look at some examples now, some practice problems. I want you to do these 6 problems. I guess there's 8 problems. Then I want you to come back and check your work once you are finished. Okay, let's go on and check these. The first one, our greatest common factor out of 64 and 40 is going to be 8. And then we are not going to have any variables because 64 has no other variables. Now divide it. 64 divided by 8 is 8. Negative 40 divided by 8 is negative 5. We still have our AB. Number 2. Start with our coefficients. 4 and 16. The greatest common factor is 4. And then our first term we have a variable. Our second term we do not. So let's go on and divide it out. 4 divided by 4 is 1. We're still left with d squared. 16 divided by 4 is 4. Okay, let's go on and look at the next one. We have 15 and 30. The greatest common factor is 15. And then a and a squared, we're going to take the smallest exponent, so just a. We have d and d squared, smallest exponent, just be d. So if we divide, 15 divided by 15 is 1. A and a cancel, and d cancel, so we're just left with 1. Then 30 divided by 15 is 2. A squared divided by a, we just have an a left, and d squared divided by d, we just have the d left. Next one, 75 and 60. The greatest common factor there is 15. Now let's look at b. So b squared and b, so we're going to have a b. G to the third and g to the third are the same, so we're just going to take out g to the third. Now let's divide it. 75 divided by 15 is 5. B squared and b, we have a b left over, and we took out our g to the thirds. Then 60 divided by 15 is 4. B and b cancel, g to the third and g to the third cancel. Okay, let's look at number 5. We have 14, 42, and 49. The greatest common factor there is 7. We have t to the third, t to the fifth, t to the fourth. The smallest exponent, so t to the third, is going to come out. And now let's simplify. 14 divided by 7 is 2. T to the third, cancel. Negative 42 divided by 7 is negative 6. T to the fifth divided by t to the third is t squared. Negative 49 divided by 7 is negative 7. T to the fourth and t to the third, we are left with just a t. Number 6, 55, 11, and 44. Our greatest common factor there is 11. Let's look at the variables. P squared, p to the fourth, and p to the fifth. And take the smallest, so p squared. Now divide it. 55 divided by 11 is 5. Your p squareds cancel. Negative 11 divided by 11 is negative 1. And then we have p to the fourth and p squared, so we're just left with a p squared. And 44 divided by 11 is 4. P to the fifth divided by p squared is p to the third. Number 7, we have 15, 10, and 25. The greatest common factor there is 5. Then we have x to the third, x squared, and x, so we're just going to take out an x. Y squared, y, and no y, so we're not taking out any y's, because our last term does not have any. So 15 divided by 5 is 3. X to the third and x, we get x squared. Don't forget to bring down your y squared. Then 10 divided by 5 is 2. X squared divided by x, we left with x, bring down the y. 25 divided by 5 is 5. X and x cancel out. The last one here, let's look. We have 9, 18, and 24. The greatest common factor is 3. Now let's look at our variables. We have an a, there's no other a's, so we can't take a out. We have x to the third, x squared, and x. Smallest one, we're going to take out an x. We have a b, there's no other b's, and a c, there's no other c's. So our greatest common factor is 3x. Now divide. 9 divided by 3 is 3. We still have our a we have to bring down, and then x to the third divided by x is x squared. 18 divided by 3 is 6. We have to bring down our b. X squared divided by x, we're left with an x. And 24 divided by 3 is 8. We have to bring down our c, and x divided by x cancels out. So that is your lesson on factoring by the greatest common factor. Please reach out if you have any questions.